Mercury goes retrograde on Thursday, July 17th, and Mercury will be retrograde entirely in the sign of Leo until August 11th. But this isn't a typical Mercury retrograde. I'm actually really excited for this one, and I'm even looking forward to it. And it's also not the only revision energy in the sky. We'll talk about all of it in this week's report. I'm going to go ahead and mark our Mercury here in Leo in case that's helpful for you if you're studying astrology and feel like following along with the chart. And if you just want to listen to the astrology report and not worry about that part, my intention is always that this works for everyone at any place with your astrological study. Okay, so Mercury stations this week. Mercury goes retrograde on Thursday. And so building up to that, we're in the station period. We're in the period where Mercury is slowing down to go retrograde. And many believe, and I agree, that these periods tend to be the most potent. The very beginning and the very end of the retrograde period. Often there's some sort of a tie-in even between these two periods. So it's always really good to pay attention to what's going on for you right around the time of the station, because it could be a theme that you then end up working with for the next few weeks during the Mercury retrograde process. So we might be feeling the Mercury retrograde sort of uniquely this week, this Monday through Thursday, as Mercury is still moving direct in Leo, but slowing down, starting to slow down to think about turning around. So I want to talk about that energy specifically, what it's like as Mercury is stationing retrograde. And then there are a few other things in the chart that do tie in as well with this revision energy. So if you haven't been feeling like you've been sort of going over and reworking newly laid plans or reconsidering the way you've been doing something, now might be a time where that really starts to kick in. That could really kick in this week. I just want to say good morning to everyone. Hello to Dane. Good morning and welcome. I'm so glad to have you all with me. I enjoy doing these astrology reports live to get to see you and talk a little bit. So please feel free to leave any comments below in the chat, or if you're watching this later, you can also leave any questions or comments there and I'll get to them later or address them in the next report. Okay, so this Mercury retrograde really is very different. And like I said, I've really been sort of looking forward to it because we had a Mars retrograde here over the winter, and Mars retrogrades are so long. So it was the winter, it was the late fall, it was the early spring. And I feel like this Mercury retrograde is actually a chance to sort of revise and move forward, make progress with, redo where necessary some of what might have gotten lost or depleted or injured in some way during that Mars retrograde. So there may have been a part of our lives where we were feeling not at our full shining self, not at our full level or full capabilities for part of the winter. There's a few different ways this could show up. It could show up in terms of motivation, not feeling very motivated, knowing what the goal is, what the dream is, but just being really low energy. It could also be sort of a low confidence issue. Not really so much low energy, but just not quite feeling up to it in that sense. Mars retrograde can also feel like you're working very hard at something, but the progress is incredibly slow. So that might have happened as well. It could be sort of a combination of all these things. If you know where Leo falls in your chart, it could help you to identify those life areas either by house, or also by planets if you have placements in that house. But either way, rethinking what felt a little stuck lately feels really, really on the menu right now, according to the astrology for this week. And I don't want to overstate a Mercury retrograde. I think the word retrograde always worries people, and retrogrades really aren't negative. They aren't a bad thing at all, even of themselves. But a Mercury retrograde in particular, we have 3 or 4 a year. They're really quite common. Um, and that's why, part of why, I called this video Editing as Part of the Writing Process, right? I thought about calling it like you have to take some steps backwards to go forwards, or you have to go back to go forward, or something like that. But that's actually not really what I meant. And Mercury is about words and about language. And as we move forward, as we build the dream, as we figure out what it is we want and where we're headed and who we really are, as we continue with the process of figuring that out, stopping, slowing down, and rethinking what we're doing and where we are, it is a really important thing. It really is a part of what we have to do in life. We especially are doing this with Mercury and Leo. We're not just thinking about who we are and what we want. Those are very sort of Leo words, emphasis on the us, who are you, not who others expect you to be. We get in touch with our authentic selves during Mercury and Leo. And we get in touch with the dream of what you want, because Leo knows how to be an individual. Leo knows how to shine. That's the thing. Mars being retrograde here earlier in the year, and then Mercury now as well, sort of tightening that up. So unnatural for Mars to be retrograde there, really, because it's such a forward moving sign and it's such a forward moving planet. So when we were going through that, which is somewhat rare, not feeling strong, not feeling motivated, not able to make progress, even if we were working pretty hard, or the progress just being sort of slow, that's not really the natural state of things. So with Mercury and Leo, we get to reconsider what we want, who we are, and also, and very importantly, whether or not we've really been sharing that appropriately with the world, right? Leo energy doesn't just want to be itself, it wants to express itself. And so Mercury being here is so important for healing that, for helping us find the right way to express. Leo can be very boldly expressive, Mercury and Leo. Our words, our speech can be magnetic during this time. We might be extra good at telling a story, explaining things in a certain kind of way. And we can use that verbal power to entertain, to inspire. There's so many different things that we can do with it. But Mercury retrograde in Leo, and Leo in general, especially on the heels of that Mars retrograde, I feel like this week, especially as Mercury is stationing, but it'll continue through July, as we go through the process. I feel like this week we're really thinking about whether or not we're really showing that person to the world. It's not just about knowing who you are and claiming that. It's really about finding ways to express it. So we could find ourselves during this Mercury retrograde having big opinions, having strong views, really speaking with conviction. One thing that I just love about this signature, about Mercury and Leo, I think it's my favorite thing, is the way in which it's an act of speaking truth, speaking our truth, speaking authentically is really an act of self-love. Mercury in Leo understands that expressing ourselves honestly and authentically, which doesn't mean without thinking, which doesn't mean too quickly, means being our best selves, from a secure place. That is actually really an act of self-love. That it's showing our self-respect. We're understanding the importance of showing up in the world as the person we're meant to be. So revising is a part of this process. We can't just move forward all the time. We have to slow down sometimes and rethink and reconsider. And I think that there is a lot of energy like that in the sky, because we also right now have Saturn and Neptune newly retrograde here at early degrees of Aries. And that energy is very contemplative as well, very much going in. We've been building this new dream, and now we're slowing down and we're thinking about it a little bit differently. What am I building here? Is it working? Is it solid? Is the foundation really strong? What do I need to do differently? Where did I make a mistake, and where do I need to show up differently in order for this to be built more strongly? And let me not take on too much of the blame for myself. Also, let me make sure I'm being honest and real about other people's responsibility, at least for myself, and know where other people have need to be accountable and take responsibility for the ways in which things are going. Now is a time that we are moving into this new period. All these outer planets shifting really suggests sort of a turn of the page into a new chapter, into something of a new era in the world and also in our personal lives. And this doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that unfolds over a few years, really 2025, 2026, but it's really sort of 2024 through mid 2026 is the way I would explain that era shift. So we're right in the middle of it now. And right now we have all the outer planets actually in their new positions. They are going to retrograde and move out of that, but we're getting a little taste this summer for the new era. And within that time, we get this Mercury retrograde in Leo, all in Leo, right where we had Mars retrograde before, reminding us of the importance of expressing ourselves in the world authentically, that it's an act of self-love, that we're here to be ourselves. And so this week is a great time to slow down, go within a little bit, and reconsider what you're doing, who you are, why you're doing it. Editing is part of the writing process. So we are also still under the Capricorn full moon, was our last lunation, which is a very serious energy. It's very much about taking stock of things, taking account for things. So that energy is really with us as well from that. I'm going to link to a couple other videos here about the current astrology. I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for being here. Please like and share this video if you enjoyed. Check out some others on my channel. Subscribe to see more. And just thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful week. I'll be back on Friday.